Last time on Golden Sun. And yes, I'm spoiling the first game, deal with it. Yo kid, wake up, we're all gonna die. Oh no, save my brother. You had one job. Can you still get help?
Truth is, the game was rigged from the start.
My family's never coming back. Thanks. I think that someone's gonna steal the elemental stores. Didn't we tell the elders? Probably, but I'm sure everything's fine. Entering Soul Sanctum is forbidden, but let's check to make sure they're still there. Is that the ocean? What's the ocean? Oh good, they're still here. Everything is fine. Thanks for letting us in, asshole. What are you gonna do to us? I don't know. Don't hurt them though. I love these assholes. Ask your brother, Jenna.
That's impossible!
Isn't he supposed to be dead? Give us the elemental stores, kiddos. No. Yes. Okay. Oh no, the sanctuary is collapsing. Bye. If the stores are used to light the full lighthouses, the world will probably explode. Prevent that. No pressure. You lit the Foos lighthouse? Oh well, I'm sure we'll get them next time. Son of a bitch, they did it again. We're a dragon now. Die. That did not go as planned. Damn, you guys are strong. But I still need to light the beacons. Why? I'll tell you in the next game. Sheba, don't let go. Great advice. I was kind of shoehorned in the last minute, but I'll be important in the next game, I swear. I won't let you die, Sheba. Wow, all the villains died. Our job just got a lot easier. Hey, where'd Jenna go? Don't worry about it. It'll be in a post-credit scene. What is this, the MCU? The next lighthouse is on the other side of the ocean. The perfect excuse to not see us for another 20 hours. Can't believe I'm stuck in this island with you. Same. I wonder what happened to my brother. Let me show you. I love the first Golden Sun. It's not one of my favorite games or anything, but I've really enjoyed it. The game felt like a refreshingly unique RPG with some cool gameplay customization and even field abilities. But Golden Sun was too big for one game. In order to make the game they wanted, Camelot had to split it into two Game Boy Advance games. First game ends with a to be continued screen, and a year and a half after its North American release, we finally had the second half to this tale. I didn't play Golden Sun until its release on Wii U Virtual Console, but even then, I still wanted to play the next game in the series. During the Wii U's life, I didn't have much spending money. I mostly got games for my birthday or Christmas during this time, and I didn't consistently have a full-time job until senior year of high school, so I didn't end up playing The Lost Age, despite really wanting to. By the time I actually had spending money, I basically forgot everything about Golden Sun. I noticed that I tended to remember more about a game when I made a review of it, so that's exactly what I did. About a year ago, I reviewed Golden Sun, and it ended up being one of my most viewed videos. For some reason. I get that Golden Sun hasn't really been covered much, but okay. Close to 80 views is not much in the grand scheme of things, but I can search Golden Sun review on YouTube, scroll down a bit, and find my own video. That's really damn cool. Kind of annoying how it's one of my most viewed videos, though. I hate how awkward I sounded back then. Like, dude, show some emotion. I don't know, maybe I'll be saying the same things about this video a year from now. I know I'm getting off on a bit of a tangent, but this was part of my experience with Golden Sun. I made a video not only as a way to refresh myself, but also to make sure I remembered it this time. And it worked. I rewatched the review, rewatched the ending, and remembered just about everything. But that's enough about my dumb videos. I have unfinished business with this series, and I didn't know much about The Lost Age going in. My only real knowledge about The Lost Age is that you play as the villains and it's the fan favorite in the series. I've heard a lot of people say The Lost Age is the best in the series, and that's quite a bit to live up to. Well, let's take a look at The Lost Age and see if it at least lives up to the first game. Alright, first order of business. Inputting an obscenely long password to transfer over your save data. If you want to transfer over everything and you don't have 2 GBAs and a link cable, be prepared to write down 260 character long password and input exactly as you see. If you make a mistake, it won't work. I had to play on Wii U for recording purposes, so guess what I went through? It took half an hour of misery and pain. If you have 2 systems and a link cable, use those instead and save yourself the trouble. If you only have 1 system or we're playing on Wii U, just use a silver password. You won't get to keep your inventory or money, but it'll save you a lot of agony. I wanted to transfer over everything to get the full experience, but this long password was such a pain in the ass. I do have to give them props for being considerate for players who only have 1 system, but the save data is on my Wii U. Can't you just read the save data or something? It's a pain, but in the end, it was worth it just from being able to keep a few helpful items. Keep in mind that this won't come into play until like 2/3 of the way through the game. More on that later. After a short recap, The Lost Age shows out moments before the end of the first game. While Isaac and the gang are off fighting Satoru Subnaughty at the Venus Lighthouse, Jenna and Clayton, with the help of Alex, use the commotion as a chance to escape. I didn't really talk about Alex last time. He's a water adept from the same tribe as Mia and sided with Satoru Subnaughty, but he's more of a moral gray character. He's pretty clearly an antagonist, but he also helps you from time to time and seems to have his own agenda. Alchemy used to be commonplace, and Alex wants to see the Lost Age return to its former glory. There was a bunch of exposition, and, Crane and Jenna want to light the lighthouses? Wait, what? Excuse me? Didn't we spend the entire first game trying to prevent that? Whose side are you guys on? Plays Jenna for a bit, and end up at a peninsula and wait for Felix. Meanwhile, Isaac's party defeats Satoris and Minotti, and they fall into the lighthouse, along with the Venus Star. Sheba, who's a wind adept they kidnapped from Tolby, falls off the lighthouse in the tremors, and Felix jumps after her to save her. The tremors cause the nearby peninsula to drift out to sea, and everyone's just stuck on this floating island now. Felix and Sheba miraculously end up on this drifting island, and after waking up, they all get hit by a massive tidal wave. Everyone comes out unscathed, and it's amazing that these people are even alive at this point. Felix and Sheba both survive falling off a massive tower and a tidal wave in the same day, uninjured. These guys have plot armor so thick that not even nukes have penetrated at this point. The island gets shoved onto land, and it's up to Felix, Jenna, and Sheba to light the remaining lighthouses. But first they need to find a working ship, as the last two are only accessible by sea. Alex goes off on his own, and you later meet a water adept named Piers, who just so happens to be from Lemuria, which is basically this world's equivalent to Atlantis, except that it actually exists. Afterwards, you fix Pierce's ship, and you travel on and try to figure out how to get into Lemuria and light the remaining lighthouses. And yeah, you play as the antagonist this time. Technically. Felix's party has the opposite goal of Isaac's party, but they don't really feel like villains. Like, they go out of their way to help people and don't ask for anything in return. You don't seem to get this whole villain thing, do you? I always love being able to play as the villains, but these guys are not villains. Playing as the antagonist was cool as hell at first, but it kind of loses its charm once you realize you're playing as a group of upstanding citizens. Like, what? When I play as a villain, I don't want to save the world. I want to burn it to the ground. What I really liked about this is that they don't tell you their motivation for doing this until about 2/3 of the way through the game. At least not in detail. Because after all, their parents' lives depend on it? Wait, whoa. They were alive? Did they not get crushed by a giant boulder? What? This single text box, at least as far as I can tell, is the only indication of a motivation for a large part of the game. And I missed it initially. I'm not sure if I just forgot this detail or what, because I really liked that they didn't tell you their motivation for most of the game. I thought they were being intentionally vague, and I really liked that. Except that they kind of tell you. I don't know, maybe this is just the curse of being a fast reader. I had all kinds of questions and theories about why they were doing this, and I was even questioning my own actions. But no. This single text box at the beginning of the game says otherwise. Honestly, this just feels like bad storytelling. You can't just explain this important of a detail with one line and don't elaborate on it until much later. Like, imagine if, in Pokemon, they tell you what Pokemon are with one text box and don't elaborate further. Even something that was a little story-focused as Pokemon drills in your head what your motivation is. They emphasize what Pokemon are and why you want to get 8 gym badges. In this game, they tell you once, and it's likely you'll just forget about it eventually. Your parents are in danger? Okay, why? At least reiterate it every now and then. It's one thing if it's foreshadowing or something, but they tell you like it is. Your parents are in danger, go save them, I guess. They don't even explain how lighting the beacons would save them, you just have to assume that it does. I don't know, maybe I'm just an idiot and I'm misremembering, but the fact of the matter is that I was paying attention to the story and I missed this detail. That shouldn't happen. At least not with something as important as this. What I really liked, that was actually intentional, is that this story has a heroic antagonist. While Felix's party wants to light the 4 beacons, Isaac's party wants to prevent that. This isn't anything new, games have done this before and since, but it's cool to have technically antagonists that are straight up good guys. Granted, Isaac's party aren't the main antagonists. You don't even run into Isaac until 2/3 of the way through the game. But the fact that they're out there trying to stop you and are essentially the good guys in this story is just so cool to me. The game does heavily imply they'll join the party eventually, because of the whole password thing, but you still don't know who ends up switching sides. The moral vagueness isn't actually there like I thought it was while playing, but you do know someone's gonna swap sides eventually. And that adds just enough to where I was looking forward to it. There was one thing I really hated about this story though. Hey Felix, what's your favorite color? That wasn't an answer. Could you actually speak? Son of a bitch. Why the hell is Felix silent now? I was perfectly okay with Isaac being silent, but now that Felix is the main character, he takes the role of silent protagonist. No. You can't do this. Felix was clearly capable of answering more than yes or no questions in the first game. Why can't he talk all of a sudden? Oh, and guess what? Isaac talks now. Excuse me? This is just wrong. I've got no issues with silent protagonists, but please, be consistent. This is not how you do it. My other main gripe with this game is how long it takes for anything significant to happen. Once they let you loose into the world at about half an hour in, the plot just kinda stops. Things do happen, but almost none of it has to do with the main objective. It was like this in the first game after the Mercury Lighthouse, but it feels worse here. You don't get to the Jupiter Lighthouse until about 20 hours in. There is an entire game worth of game in between your main objectives. Why? Okay, even still, the first main goal of the game is get a boat to be able to access the last few lighthouses. You finally get Pierce's ship working at about 9 to 10 hours. I'm not asking you to plot this constant action so perfectly paced you're always on the edge of your seat or anything. I just would have liked for the plot to get a move on, you know? Things in this game do happen, but it takes so long for the story to really pick up. The game has new villains as well. I'm not talking Isaac in the gang either. Satoru's a minority died, so there has to be some kind of antagonistic presence, right? Coast is Minority's sister, and once she finds out she died, she seeks revenge on Isaac. And then there's Agashio. Wait, Agadio? Agashio? I don't know how to pronounce that. Anyway, Agadio is, who even is he? He's just kind of there. I guess that he's Coast's right-hand man, but he doesn't do anything. And to be honest, these new villains barely count as villains. They're just like, we're always going to inch you in the direction of the next lighthouse. Okay, cool. I'm just gonna go do side quests while you're nowhere to be seen. These villains are so inconsequential to the plot that I almost forgot to talk about them. These guys only show up like 4 or 5 times during the game. I couldn't even remember their names before this. You guys have the same goal as we do. What are you gonna do a job for us? Oh, I'm so scared. The Satoru and Minority had actual build-up and were, you know, menacing. These guys feel like shoehorned in replacements. But what I do have to praise is the presentation. This is still one of the best looking games on GBA. It looks exactly the same as its predecessor, but considering the hardware, there wasn't really much they can improve. I mean, seriously, how did Game Boys not catch on fire because of this game? The soundtrack I feel really mixed on. On the one hand, these are some really good compositions, but on the other hand, the instruments feel off and I can never remember most of it when I'm not playing the game, save for a few tracks. It feels like the soundtrack was held back by the Game Boy Advance. If we got remixes of these with better instruments, these tracks would be orgasmic. But in its current state, I don't know. It's a good soundtrack, but it feels held back by the technology. It doesn't help that some tracks get played too much. I honestly can't remember the regular battle theme for the life of me. It gets played so damn much that it's almost like my brain doesn't want to remember. And my god, the sailing theme and world map theme drive me crazy you hear them so much. Maybe a few alternate tracks for these would have helped. The gameplay of The Lost Age is pretty much the same as the first game. No, seriously, they barely changed anything. Alright, that's fine. The gameplay had a solid foundation, but they didn't really add anything either. It's not something like Majora's Mask, where the game is clearly based on another game, but it still stands on its own. No, it's the same game. There's new summons you can unlock, but that's pretty much it. Yes, there are new field abilities, and some of them are actually pretty cool. Like being able to dive into sand, that's pretty sweet. But the core gameplay has gone practically unchanged. Still find Jin, you still have Psi Energy, nothing's really changed. Just like my virginity. They didn't really fix any issues either. Like when you hit an enemy and kill it, the other party members won't attack the next enemy. They'll just gourd instead. I could have seen that as an oversight for the first game, but they didn't fix something as simple as that? And speaking of enemies, they're really weak in this game. I could easily deal with most random encounters by using my normal attacks. That's fairly standard for RPGs, but this game has a weird lack of bosses. It gets better as time goes on, but I was surprised by how little there were for most of the game. You go so long without fighting anything remotely challenging. Take A-Rock for example. You go through this hour-long dungeon, and then you just get reveal. You don't fight a boss or anything, get it? You just get it at the end. And this game does that a lot. You'll go through areas, maybe get some new field abilities, and then don't fight any strong enemies for a noticeably long time. It's so weird. Bosses in the first game felt pretty evenly distributed, but here they feel really scarce. And I think it might be because the Lost Age is longer than its predecessor. There was technically more bosses in the Lost Age, but they were more spread out to the point where it feels like there was less of them. I feel like if you put a boss in the enemy's elemental rock, it would have greatly helped the boss scarcity. You beat a boss, you get a new ability. Classic RPG stuff. Gaia Rock already did this, so I'm not sure why it's the only one to do this. It did have a side story attached to it, but I don't need an excuse to fight a stronger enemy. The Djinn system that I mentioned earlier makes a return as well. This is what made Golden Sun feel unique to me. You find these Djinn around the world, and they can be equipped like almost any character. You can mix and match them, and the characters get different synergy attacks and stats from them. It works just the same as it did before, but because of the lack of strong enemies, I didn't really feel the need to experiment much. Granted, you could completely ignore it just like you can now, but the weak enemies really makes this whole system less fun. Why should I bother experimenting when most enemies go down with 2 to 3 regular hits anyway? The only big difference now is that most shouldn't fight you before they join you, and just about all of them go down easily. Like, is it just me, or is the Lost Age a lot easier than the original? The first game wasn't that hard either, but the Lost Age just feels easier, you know? Speaking of Djinn, they're basically representing each of the 4 main elements, you know. Wait, I made this joke last time. Anyway, my point is that the elements are also represented by a planet, and the planets that they chose are really weird. Well, a commenter in the last video pointed out that it's apparently based on mythology. I think it's some combination between Greek Taoism and something called the Order of the Golden Dawn. But that info's from some Golden Sun forum I found, so I could be wrong about that. It makes sense that it's like this from the whole mythology thing, but considering everything we know about the planets now, it's still funny to me. The planet that represents water is the closest planet to the sun. Good luck keeping liquid water on that thing's surface. Synergy attacks are essentially your magic attacks. Because of the weak enemies, these felt pretty useless too. They can be useful for taking out multiple enemies, but if there's only like 1 or 2 enemies on screen, which is most of the time, I'd rather just save my PP and use my regular attack. And that's the thing about this game, your regular attack is so strong. Whether this was intentional or not, I'm not sure. Most weapons have a chance of using a much stronger attack than usual, so maybe it was intentional. But the thing is that you have an infinite use attack that does reliable damage, and strong enemies don't come into play very often. Why use anything else? To be fair, weak random encounters are standard in RPGs. It was even like this in the first game. But with how little bosses there are throughout the game, it just makes the game feel boring. There are a few optional bosses, but even still, boss battles don't come up very often. Sure, the battle system's interesting, but without stronger enemies to fight, there's no point to it. You'll just be spamming your regular attack anyway. After Piers joins the party, you soon gain access to a boat and you can sail on the ocean. It's at this point when the game just takes a huge nosedive. The world really opens up to you and you can go pretty much anywhere at this point. Which, I do have to compliment how big this world is, especially for something on Game Boy Advance. And the game doesn't have much hand-holding, which is really nice. The Lost Age just lets you play it and there aren't even many tutorials. But it's at this point where the lack of hand-holding actually becomes a problem. The next main objective is to get into Lemuria. It's surrounded by an intricate system of currents and whirlpools, so venturing further is impossible without current equipment. Despite being from Lemuria, Piers has never left before, so he has no idea how to get back in. So, we all need to figure out how to get in, without any hints at all. Did I miss something? Is there some NPC I missed that tells you what you're supposed to do? What you have to do to get in is go to this town called Yalom. There, you have some kids do some weird dance around some rocks, and you're somehow supposed to connect the dots and use this to get through the Sea of Time. What? I'd assume this would be how to get some obscure secret, not how to actually progress in the game. And once you get through the Sea of Time, you're still not done. Lemuria is guarded by Poseidon. Oh boy. In order to defeat him, you need to go out and get 3 trident pieces and have the grandma of a pirate you'd accidentally busted out of jail forge them together. And to be honest, this sounds like a side quest. This point in the game is really cryptic, and the game doesn't really give you much direction in general. I had to use a walkthrough for most of the game because I honestly had no idea where I was supposed to be going. At every other point in the game, I just needed a nod in the right direction. But here, there was no way I would have figured any of this out. And keep in mind that the whole process of getting all 3 trident pieces is going to take you through a few dungeons, and like 5 to 8 hours of playtime. No joke, this seemingly quick detour is a big chunk of the game. With the lack of story progression, and next to no direction on where to go next, this whole mid-game feels like needless padding. Oh, and that trident that you have to forge? After you defeat Poseidon, it barely does anything. It's not even a weapon. It just raises your water resistance by 20, and lets you do an attack that's 20% stronger than a regular attack. Oh boy. You go through all this trouble just to progress in the game, and you don't even get anything decent from it. This whole Shrine quest really should have been a side quest or something. It's too cryptic, and even now that I know where to go for all this, it takes up too much of the game to be enjoyable. It's like the Triforce quest at the end of Wind Waker. It doesn't feel arbitrary per se, but it definitely needed to be shorter. How slow the boat moves doesn't help this whole quest either. You do get the option to move faster later, but I really wish you got it earlier. The random encounters on the sea are annoying too. Even with a void casted, they still felt way too common. Some of the encounters don't even make any sense. I get mermen and sea dragons, but seagulls? Seriously? Don't you just hate it when you're out in the open sea, only to be stopped dead in your tracks by a single seagull? I'm sure any sailors out there can vouch for me on this. This is almost too realistic. It's really annoying how many synergy items there are in this game too. Basically, those are these items that you can find that give you new field abilities. They aren't key items or anything, these are just regular items that take up your limited inventory space. I don't understand their point to begin with. Either have a separate tab for them, or just have a specific character permanently learn the ability. It's annoying having limited inventory space to begin with. Why make this an even bigger issue? These items were also in the first game, but because there's more of them, it just feels like a bigger issue than it was before. Hey, I love this game. How dare you have a negative opinion of the Lost Age? Okay, look, I know I've been really negative with this review so far. I'm sure there have been at least a few people that have clicked off and disliked the video thinking I'm some deranged fanboy that hated every second of this game, but that's not the case. I've brought up so many complaints about this game because the last 12 or so hours of Golden Sun: The Lost Age is probably one of the best RPGs I've ever played. It makes the game's flaws so much more prevalent because in a world where the game's pacing is better and you're less likely to get lost, this game is fantastic. Once you get to Lemuria and more of the plot gets explained, the game has a massive spike in quality. It's like Camelot knew about issues with the first game's pacing and fixed it right at the end. My biggest issue with The Lost Age is just how long it takes to get to this point. It has a solid opening, but once the game opens up, it just becomes a huge slog to play through. There's about 10 or so hours of this game where all of its issues are most prevalent, and that really bogs the game down for me. But the good that is here is mostly spoiler territory. So just skip to the time coming up, because going into this game spoiler-free really enhanced the experience for me. Sometimes a little too much. Despite my issues with the mid-game, I still kept playing because I wanted to know how this whole story ended. And that's coming from a guy who thought the mid-game was boring and kinda tedious. Well, let's get into why the endgame is so good. Seriously, if you're still here, I'm about to spoil all the really good parts of the story. Cool? Cool. After defeating Poseidon, who's a god by the way, you finally make it to Lemuria. It's this advanced civilization where people live insanely long lifespans and have a civilized government, and it's all dying. There's a fountain of YouTube in the— What? Did I just mistype youth as YouTube? There's a fountain of youth in the center of town, and everyone's lost motivation to advance civilization. Piers finds out from his uncle that his mother passed, and while he's gone, everyone gives a rundown of what's really going on. You'll also find out during this scene that Jenna's parents were kidnapped by the Fire Clan, and they'll be let go once all 4 beacons have been lit. At least, I think this is where we find that out. As far as I can tell, this is the only time they mention their parents being alive since the beginning of the game. Again, why did they wait so long to reiterate this? Lemuria prospered because of alchemy, and once it was sealed its soul sanctum, it caused Lemuria to slowly regress in the state that it is now. After visiting Lemuria's king, Hydros, you find out the world is slowly breaking into smaller and smaller pieces. And hey, Wayward is flat. Ha! Take that, Galileo. Piers was sent out by the king to confirm that this was actually happening. And keep in mind that Piers is the first person to leave Lemuria in a really long time, so King Hydros is really serious about this. And so, it turns out that the world is slowly dying. When alchemy was sealed, it drained the world of his life energy, and the only way to bring it back is to light the 4 lighthouses. So, either we wait for the world to slowly die, or take the chance to see if lighting all 4 will actually cause the planet's destruction. Well, the game's gonna make us do it anyway, so might as well. At the Jupiter Lighthouse, Felix and the gang finally run into Isaac, who talks now. This is not okay. Isaac and Ivan are fighting against Kos and Agachio, and losing, while Garrett and Mia fell to a platform below them. On the way to saving them, Alex heals you up, even though he's, on the enemy's side. Despite being a villain, he weirdly seems to respect Felix. Isaac and Ivan are defeated, but the villains agree to let them live if you go and light the lighthouse, which you were going to do anyway. Okay. They make you take the mold stole off of Isaac, and at the top of the lighthouse, the beacon is lit and they try and kill you for some reason. Why? This is why I don't like these villains, they're kind of idiots. Okay, so, your plan is to kill us now because you don't need us anymore. The Moe's Lighthouse is in Prox, their hometown. But you do realize that if we light it ourselves, you don't have to do anything, right? If your plan to kill us fails, you still win in the end and still get what you want. I think the ultimate goal is world domination using the power of the Moe's Lighthouse or something, but you can just sit around and do nothing and still win because our goal is the same as yours. What? Even if Felix loses, his parents are still okay, so... You kick their asses regardless of their terrible logic. Alex heals them, they escape, and the two parties decide to meet up in a nearby town to talk. Jenna explains the whole parent situation to them, and it turns out that Isaac's dad's alive too. It turns out that Satoris and Minoru were responsible for that border storm in the beginning of the first game. They tried to take the source from Soul Sanctum, and failed. Feels follow. But it turns out that Satoris and Minoru rescued everyone from the border, so that kid that got Golden Sun for his birthday finally has his relief. It does kind of ruin this whole scene, but you find out that Felix is alive like an hour later, so whatever. I can't tell you how glad I was to find out you were alive. Excuse me? Glad? Does this look glad to you, Jenna? Isaac's party learns that the world's slowly dying, and the two parties finally join up. Afterwards, your ship gets the ability to hover, and the game really picks up. There's only a few more things left to do, and then it's time for the Moe's Lighthouse. At this point, you can go anywhere you want, and you have 8 party members to play around with. You don't have to use Isaac or Felix either, you can use anyone. It's usually really arbitrary not being able to take the main protagonist out of the party. Unless it's someone that's so good you don't want to take them out, like in Final Fantasy VII or Persona. There isn't much reason to take out Felix because he's the kind of character I just mentioned, but you can. And that's what I really love. The battle theme will even change depending on who's in your party. That's even cooler. The regular battle theme got really old by this point in the game. Oh dude, let's jam out to the old one. A lot of the endgame stuff is the usual. More gen, more side quests, I think there's a super boss somewhere, all that jazz. But here's the thing, most of my previous issues are resolved by this point in the game. Now that your boat has wings, you can hold B to float in the air to move faster, and avoid encounters altogether. This isn't your Final Fantasy airship though, it only goes where you can go, and it drains you PP pretty quick. But there's plenty of inns, so that's not really an issue. I also had a lot of issues figuring out where to go next, but here there's only a few places in the Western Sea to check out. You can figure out what to do just by wandering around for a bit. Even the dungeons from the earlier onwards are more fun. Like, the Jupiter Lighthouse has you traversing in cool ways, and it felt like a really cool use of your wind skills. The battles at this point still aren't that interesting. Bosses have the same issue as the first game. You can use Jin to buff your stats and do damage, then build up your summon gauge to finish them off. You'd think that you would want to rush to the final lighthouse, but there is no tension at this point in the game. Oh, Kosa's the Moe store? That doesn't really matter. If she lights it instead, she just did your job for you, who cares? The villains of this game feel like plot devices. Even if they didn't take the stone from you, you would have gone to Prox to light the beacon. Which is what they're trying to do. Why are they even trying to interfere with Felix? It's a win-win situation for them. If Coast and Agadio weren't in this story, it wouldn't really change. Worst case scenario, Felix and Isaac would fight, but no matter which side won, they wouldn't kill them. Jenna and Crane would explain the situation to them, and they would have joined up anyway. Coast and Agadio have no significance to the plot. Why do they even exist? After doing a few more errands, you finally make it to Prox, the villain's home turf. And it was not what I was expecting. Everyone's pale and miserable because of the never-ending snowstorm and bitter cold engulfing the town. But they're still kind, and hopeful that the Moe's Lighthouse will be lit so that the whole times will be over. They're so desperate to light the final beacon that their soldiers are willing to practically kill themselves trying. These guys even knew that the planet was dying, and no one listened to them! This town just makes the villains feel sympathetic all of a sudden. They just wanted to help their village and return it to its former glory. Storis and Minoru was ordered to kidnap them because they were just as desperate as everyone else in town. The town's practically dying, and the only way to end it was to light all the beacons. We see them as the bad guys, and they see them as heroes. Wow, and they don't even know they're dead. Despite doing some bad things, the Storis and Minoru don't seem like bad people. They didn't even kill anyone. In fact, they went out of their way to rescue any potential casualties in the storm they caused. And even though the Felix was, kidnapped, everyone in town knows him and they're really friendly towards him. It's pretty clear they still treated the people from Vale well. This town was easily the most memorable location in the game for me. And this is coming from a game that's a town full of werewolves. Like, come on dude, that's cool as hell. It gives you a whole different perspective on the villain's actions. Before all this, I never once thought that maybe they were doing this for a reason. Although they probably should have gone about it in a less terroristy way.
I say the whole world must learn of our peaceful ways. By force.
Try and visit your parents and they seem to have weirdly vanished. Maybe they'll show up later. Anyway, it's time for the final lighthouse, which is the final dungeon of the game. I would have liked Lighthouse 3 and 4 to be a bit further apart, but this game's already long enough. That's another issue I have with The Lost Age. The game goes on for way too long. First game was about 20 hours. This one's about 30. I feel like a lot of the pacing issues could have been resolved by making the game the same length as last time. Maybe then we wouldn't have had the last two lighthouses be so close together. The Mole's Lighthouse is probably my favorite dungeon out of both games. This isn't just a test of your fire skills, this uses all of your abilities. And despite being fire themed, it has a lot of ice that ends up being melted later on, which I really liked. It feels like this climactic final dungeon, and that's cool. Wait, hold on. The enemies are actually doing decent damage to me? Oh my god, is this game actually posing a challenge for once? They still go down in a few hits like normal, but they're doing enough damage to feel like a threat. Okay, this is a nice change of pace. The Mole's Lighthouse even gives you one last ability. Teleport. This lets you teleport between these pedestals, but if you use it on the world map, it's fast travel. Right at the end of the game. Okay, fast travel is something the first game needed, and this game did too, but why put it right at the end? If we got this in the Jupiter Lighthouse, it wouldn't be too much issue. But giving it to you right at the end of the game is a total kick to the balls. It's like they knew this was an issue with the first game, just slapped it on right at the end. Why wait so long for something as essential as this? Near the end of the dungeon, you find a boss for once, and these two dragons end up being Coast and Agatio. Both are exhausted from battle, and they just die. They give you the Mole Stone so you can complete the quest for them, and it's finally time to go to the top of Mole's Lighthouse. I feel kinda bad for Coast and Agatio at this point. They just want to help out their town as much as everyone else. But again, if they weren't in the story, nothing would have changed. You would have already had the Mole Store, so you could have just gone to the top immediately instead of having to fight them for it. Okay, you would have to get teleport first, but come on. Anyway, it's finally time to light the final beacon, and something's standing gold this time. Ivan's sister mentioned earlier that there was something that didn't want the final beacon lit, and here it is, the Guardian of Soul Sanctum from the first game. Okay, this is some amazing continuity. The Wise One is supposed to be a god. He's not just gonna sit in a cave all day. If things aren't going his way, he's going to do something about it. That something being guarding the final lighthouse. The Wise One tasked Isaac in recovering the elemental stores, which everyone kind of forgot about, including me. Despite the world slowly dying, the Wise One knows that alchemy will eventually be used for evil by someone, as that's just part of human nature. This is even happening right now, because it turns out that Alex is climbing Mount Aleph and wants to use the ultimate power for himself. Once all 4 beacons are lit, the light gathers at Soul Sanctum to form the Golden Sun. Yeah, they went there. The Wise One isn't allowed to interfere with mankind. Since everyone wants to light the beacon anyway, the miracle of the Doom Dragon comes forth and tries to kill everyone. You conniving son of a bitch, that's no miracle, you're just an asshole. The Doom Dragon might just be one of my favorite final bosses from any game period. You take down each head, and each face has less health than the last. Okay, this is pretty standard final boss fare, until about the second phase. He has this attack that puts all your gen through the cooldown period, like what happens after you use a summon. But this is only for one party member at a time. That's not so bad, I can deal with that. But it's during this third phase that this fight gets brilliant. Throughout both games, my boss strategy has been to use Jin to build up my summon gauge, use my summons and repeat until the boss is dead, and heal when necessary. This has worked for any strong enemy, even the super boss of the first game. Remember that attack that drains your Jin from you? Yeah, imagine that happening to everyone at once. And keep in mind that each character has like 8 or 9 Jin at this point, so imagine mid-fight losing like 8 to 10 levels of experience. This is what this game needed more of. There aren't enough mechanics unique to bosses in this game. This one fight removes the safety net you have throughout the game and it makes you fight it in a completely different way. Not to mention, this guy has a lot of attacks that do a lot of damage to everyone. And it seems that this thing attacks any wind adepts over anyone else because it's weak to wind, which is really cool. For the first time out of both games, I died, and it felt great. But then I remember that when your active party dies, your reserve party switches in, and I lost even still. So for round 2, I switched up my tactics and used my ludicrously powerful weapons, and I have a chance to do as much damage as summons. Once the first party died, I spammed my best Steinergy attacks until I won, and it seems like he's less likely to use Ginstorm if you don't use them yourself. Either that or I just got lucky with my second attempt. He's not so bad once you figure out how to deal with him, but it's getting to that point that made this fight incredibly fun to me. After kicking his ass, it's revealed that you've been beating up your parents this whole time. Oh god, my heart. Wise one? More like despicable one. Like I said, this dude's a total asshole. And this is essentially the same process as when Satoris and Minori became the Fusion Dragon at the end of the first game. We all know how that turned out. Everyone is grieving over this, and then there's Isaac like, I knew what I was doing when I drew my sword. Dude, just cry like a normal person. After lighting the beacon, they get their parents to procs. And just kidding, they survived. There can be no doubt. Kraden, I know that you studied alchemy, but you really shouldn't neglect your English. T-H-E-O-E. Come on, man. At this point, you can save after the final boss, just like the first game. Don't do that. Afterwards, Felix and Co make their way to Vale, and Alex succeeds and gains the power from the Golden Sun. The villain actually gets what he wants. It's short-lived though. This ultimate power just gives Alex new immortality, and its Steinergy is only slightly stronger. The real power was rested in the Molestor and was given to Isaac, who wouldn't abuse it. Alex gets his ass kicked by the Wise One, and Mount Aleph gets swallowed into the earth. Alex is presumably dead, but he didn't die on screen. He ain't dead. Just look at Jenna's family. Felix can talk! Oh my god, make up your minds! Everyone makes it back to Vale, only to find out that it's gone. But everyone in town is okay, so happy ending! Yay! This ending is just whatever. Now that the whole story's been told, Golden Sun's story is still an entertaining yet standard one. I was probably engaged in it, but it's nothing I haven't seen before. Go to 4 locations, save the world. Like, come on. All the villains straight up die, which is different, especially for something rated E. It is a good story, but it's one you've probably heard of before. Although I still don't like how none of the characters really develop. Isaac's party ends up switching sides, sure, but that's only after they learn the world's slowly dying. Speaking of which, the characters don't interact much in general. Unless it's Jenna, Kraden, or Garrett, there isn't really much characterization. And it's annoying because I really like these characters and wanted to hear more from them. Especially Sheba. I love everything that comes out of this girl's mouth. Getting to the last third of this game is worth going through at least once, especially if you enjoyed the first game. But on a repeat playthrough, I'm not so sure. Even when you know where to go and what to do, there's still a long period of time when nothing significant happens, and you're mostly doing the same thing as last time. I would have really liked this game to do more unique things from its predecessor. Maybe even evolve the series a bit. Yeah, The Lost Age is the disc 2, so to speak. Say this was on PS1. The Lost Age would be the second disc to this single game. Well, then my criticisms would be mostly the same, just judged as one single game. But this was a fully priced game, and I'm judging it as a separate game. And as a sequel, it's much to be desired. Keeping the formula the same as last time is fine, but do more interesting things with the gameplay. Put in more unique mechanics like there was in the final boss. Making a 30-hour long game that's pretty much the same as last time is going to get repetitive. If these games had much better story pacing, were a little more challenging, and The Lost Age had more bosses and changed up the gameplay a bit, then these would be one of the OPG greats in my eyes. Hell, the last third of The Lost Age is one of the best OPGs I've ever played. I just wish I didn't have to play the slow first half of the game to get to it. I'd rather just play a game that's good pretty much the whole way through. That's not to say the first half of the game is bad. It's still good, but it's repetitive and nothing really happens. The first game had these issues too, and this is what really irks me about The Lost Age. This is a sequel. They had time to iron out issues with the first game, and they did, but they didn't iron them out until the very end. I think that might be why so many people hold The Lost Age in such high regard. When you play a game, the parts you remember most are the beginning and especially the end. You don't remember the middle quite as much. It's why a game like Mass Effect 3 gets so much flack. It's a fantastic game, but because the ending's bad, people remember the bad ending over everything else. Golden Sun: The Lost Age had a solid opening, a slow mid-game that drags on for way too long in my opinion, and a fantastic endgame. There's nothing wrong with that, and if you love the game anyway, then more power to you. But as someone who did remember the slow mid-game that went on for like a third of the game, it really brings the whole game down for me. There was an amazing game in here, probably even a masterpiece. I have played it, but it's not that way until the very end. It's because it takes so long to get to that point that it's only an above average game to me. I did enjoy the game, but I didn't love it until the very end, and only at the end. Well, this has been Flame Guy. Oh man, I really talked in this one, didn't I? Longer videos like this are kind of exhausting. After this, I'm gonna need something simpler. I don't know, let's play some Mega Man. Thanks for watching, everyone. Take care, and I'll see you all next session. And can I see Isaac and Smash? Hey, wait.